So I'm going to give you an overview of the R&D for business pillar strategy. So I'm going to do this in a few ways. I'm going to show you on this screen, which breaks down the sort of the impact areas, the actual programs. And I'm also going to take you through very quickly a strategic mind map I used to actually design this thing, to show you some of the granularity and the detail that exists around what we're trying to get into place here, actually. So I'll just talk about this slide very quickly with you. So, okay, the last 3 and a bit months, I've kind of taken consultation and counsel from lots of people of all across AWRC and also all across SHU. So researchers of all kinds, shapes and sizes, which has been a really insightful thing for me. I've talked a lot with people in KTP, in RIS. I've talked to people, detailed people like Lisa Mooney across research and innovation, people operationally working with AWRC, but it all focuses back in on AWRC. And the whole thing that kept coming back to me all the time in lots of conversations I had was the R&D for business pillar had done some great work and the accelerator has done some superb work. And I was lucky enough to be in the board of governors meeting yesterday with Rob, Simon and Chris. And I can wholeheartedly confirm that both the AWRC and the accelerator got really, really good reports and feedback, which was superb to see. But the message I kept getting all the time when I spoke to lots of people, and I continue to do this, is that we needed to do things more broadly across AWRC. So it encompassed the diversity of the people that were in the organization, but also outside into college and also across into the university. And I think there's also a really strong civic agenda, which I mentioned at the bottom here as well. And the thing that kept coming back all the time was this idea of a balanced portfolio of borderless research and innovation. So that's what I've tried to create with consultation, as I said. Now I'll see the technology at work. This could be interesting. Hang on a minute. There we are. Look at that. Wonderful. So what you can see on screen now is effectively a strategic mind map of what's been going through my mind for the last 3 months and caused me a few sleepless nights.
So we can't see that.
You have to change screens, I think.
Stop sharing and then share it again.
Change which screen you're sharing. Yeah.
It's okay. I'll just stop sharing. I'll reshare. So just give me 1 second. You'll see it then. It's not a problem. This worked when I recorded it earlier, but there we go. Can you all see that?
Oh, blimey.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad your confirmation's there. Thank you, Shona. Okay, so very quickly, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I want to get onto the impact areas, which are the substantive parts of what we're actually going to offer and deliver here. But I did think it was worth taking you through. So as you can see very quickly, this is the AWRC R&D for business pillar, and it's one of the things that I've been brought in to look at within the organization. A really important thing to say before I get into this here about the AWRC vision and mission. I've come to this organization very clearly after being within Medlink for 21 years and working with businesses of all sizes. So I'm talking pre-revenue business to global businesses, both nationally and internationally I've worked with. And I've worked on the ground with them, not just aside them, worked with them to develop product, get products to market, internationalize those products, and also communicate those products with teams at Medlink, okay? And the reason I'm here is really simple. It's passion. And it's passion that I saw from Rob, it's passion I've seen in the team, and it's my own passion. So I've walked away from being at Medlink, and 3 years time I would have been the CEO, I was lined up for the role, and I've come here to do that. Now, that's why I'm here. And I see that writ large across the organization. And to me, that drives me, okay? So this whole strategy is about broadening out, it's about following that passion, and it's about being mission and vision focused. That's really important. So the whole process, the whole strategy is needs driven. You can see that there. I'm not going to go into all of them, but what I want you to understand is there's a much broader range of needs out there in the marketplace that we're trying to address here. And that's important because right now, because of COVID, we find ourselves in a situation where health and well-being has got this generational opportunity to get to the front of the agenda. My previous role was all about intervention. When things go wrong with people, what do you do to them to fix them? AWRC is about resilience. It's about prevention before that intervention needs to take place. And that's a big deal. Okay, and we've got an opportunity to do something about it, which is wonderful. So I'm looking at priorities from Sheffield City region, SHU itself, so you can see things like impact. But 2 things I want to come back to in this presentation that we have to do to be successful with business in the long term, in my opinion, based on lots of experience, obviously, is we've got to be able to affect the business's bottom line. We have to be able to say to those people, we can affect your P&L actually with the research that we do. And we also have to be able to get those businesses moving more quickly towards their mission. And the good thing about companies in our sector is their mission dovetails with our mission. They're about creating health and well-being and improved healthcare. So if we can do those 2 things, we will create what I want us to create within the R&D for business pillar, and that is long-term equitable business partnerships. And I'll talk more about that in a short while. Okay, so strategic goals. The reason I list all three, I think this is really critical. We, as an AWRC, are based on a model of co-location. We're based on connecting into the university in a big way. And a long conversation I had with Lisa Mooney was around borderless research and innovation, and it really struck a chord with me. But this goes way back to my interview. And when John was asking me questions, John Wheat was asking me questions about how we get students engaged, how do we get the wider university engaged with this pillar? And that struck a chord, and I've seen it replicated as I've gone through my time here at AWRC in my 3 short months. So it's about looking at the goals of all of these organizations. In terms of what we have to offer, I won't go into detail. And by the way, I'm more than happy to share these slides so you can look at the detail later. But you've got to really think about these things before you plan operational practice. So you have a vision, you have a strategic direction, but you've got to think while you're designing these things, how they're going to work on the ground. And by the way, to be really clear about this, the things that I'm talking about here are not going to be in isolation. They will be cognizant of what's taking place. In the discussions I've had, it's about things like that, which again, I'll talk about a little bit in the impact area. But in terms of design, we thought about funding. Now, this could be transactional. We already have transactional funding from organizations. They pay us consultancy fees to do the work that we do. But it goes much wider than that. You know, we can use KTP, we can use UKRI, we can talk about the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund, we can talk about business grants and R&D funding. And also the design has to be the best fit for business in the college. So a couple of things I want to pick out on this thing over here a little bit. And again, you can look at this later in more detail. There are 2 things I think we're going to need to make this work properly. I think we need a skills and abilities matrix, so people working externally of the university understand the holistic offering that's on offer, not just from AWRC, but from college and wider issue. And I know we don't have that yet. I also think we need to go down the line of looking at strategic CRM account management. I think that's really important, strategic account management. And this is so we can have somebody with an overview of the organization, AWRC and wider issue, but also work with the MD of the organization to look at their overview. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit later on too. So those 2 things I see as having the ability to be designed with people, for example, within the Research Institute, and actually implemented in AWRC as a pilot. If they're successful, it would be nice to cascade them out. I'm cognizant of the fact that you wouldn't want to just do that straight away. I think there's a 2-stage process. Moving on slightly about the offer, I think we have world-leading facilities in places. I think the R&D that we can create around things like business challenges, disease areas is really clear. The product we have, clearly validation, connections, evaluation, prototyping, acceleration, et cetera, is great. But when I did my research initially and when I did my competitor analysis, lots of organizations offer that within our space. We know this. A couple of things we have that I think are really quite individual is I think our ability to create patient validation by looking at the National Centre for Sports and Exercise Medicine and our research role in the Move More, and also looking at patient-based research within our clinical floor is really nice. And I think that's a really nice offering to business. But also in my work with researchers, it's become pretty clear to me that some of the facilities we have on hand as well are really quite leading. So one of the researchers I was working with said to me, you know, Jason, this idea that we have MRI, DEXA and ultrasound all in the same building, he said there are probably 2 or 3 other places in the country that have that from a research centre perspective. So we need to really push those things and bring them together as an offering. Customers, again, there's a lot of stuff on there, so I'm not going to go into the detail with this. But what I want you to see is that to me, there are a whole range of customers, and there are internal customers and external ones. So for example, if we look at SHU, you know, we can be a beacon for student attraction. We can see that. Sheffield City Region, we can be a major partner for projects. If we look at the Health Research Institute, it has a role to be a facilitator into interdisciplinary activity. I think we can do that. We can work alongside the RI to actually deliver that. But this whole thing about cross-cutting thematic research, co-location, co-working is kind of writ large in this plan here. I also think at the bottom, you probably can't see it between the mind map thing there about UK government and becoming a lead partner with them in terms of coming back from COVID-19. There's a big opportunity here. So moving on, Marcoms. I won't go into too much detail because obviously we've got Jen and Holly currently looking at marketing and there's a strategy in place which I've also fed into, but this is kind of looking at strategic Marcoms for the pillar, but the wider AWRC as well. And you can see here, there's a whole range of conduits that I think we can use to get to market and cascade properly. I think University Central Comms will be key to that, so in us providing them good news that they want to get a hold of. And in terms of wider messaging, it's really about aligning with messaging that needs to be picked up within the current pantheon. So if you look at, for example, SHU, R&I, business and enterprise, local regional impact and knowledge applied, they're all things we need to tie into, but I won't labor the point on that area. And the last area you can see on screen are the program areas. And I'm going to switch back into the other presentation to take you through some of these. I'm just going to stop share again, and we're going to start that process again, and let's see if we can make this work between each other. Okay, 1 second. Right. Okay, 1 moment. Can anybody see that? Can you see the slide that says AWRC R&D for Business Pillar?
Yep.
Wonderful, we're in business. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, so what you can see here is program number 1. And remember the thing I said at the beginning about breadth of program. This is really important. It's about the whole of the AWRC and the wider university. Program 1 is called Innovation for Life. The name's pretty obvious and why we would call it that. What you can see in the background there is somebody I've known a long time personally, Ben Heller. Looks like he's doing some electronic engineering as well. But the point of that is it shows that on site, we're actually doing this stuff. It's not subcontracted out. We're actually doing it on site and providing real value. And there are 3 programs you can see here. Program number 1 is called AWRC Business R&D Solutions. This is a really substantive part of the program. And it's about driving business forward through mission-linked consultancy. And I want to go back to that point about mission-linked. So the way I envisage this and the conversations I've had with MDs of organizations already, both small and large, is that we create an holistic offering for business. We understand what their roadmaps are and we help them go down that roadmap to success. Now, to give you a quick example, I had quite a long conversation with Mark Hitchman, a UK CEO for Canon Europe, and we talked just about this very topic. And Mark explained to me that their roadmap looked a little bit like this. Within 10 years, they want to have something like 60 to 90% of their business in healthcare, because their traditional business, obviously photocopiers, scanners, et cetera, for the commercial world, isn't where they see their business. And also this is the same in Japan as well, where obviously the HQ of Canon is. And I talked to Mark about this sort of his roadmap, and we talked about this holistic consultancy, and I've tested it with other people as well within the business infrastructure, or business world, shall I say. And the way I see it working is like this. So here's the business's roadmap. Let's just say it's a 10-year roadmap, like Living Care, for example. And here's our roadmap. Where do we want to be as a research center? Physical activity, innovations that help people move, et cetera, et cetera. So what we do is we find way markers along their roadmap, working with them. And we're doing this process now. We find their way markers. And what we do is the whole way across this roadmap, we connect together with our researchers. So we're constantly creating opportunities for research of all levels, and we're addressing businesses' problems as we go along. So that creates an equitable business relationship that goes on for many years. The really great thing about that, and the big added advantage is, if you create that kind of equitable business partnership that's not lopsided in favor of business, it's balanced, you also create the opportunity for bigger opportunities. So when we're doing regional Sheffield City region, national Public Health England, international research projects, for example, we can bring consortia together really quickly because we're working that closely with them. We understand their roadmaps. And that's a key differentiator, I believe. And we can work with our strategic collaboration board as well, which obviously I sit on, in terms of making that happen. So that's holistic R&D service. It's a big thing, okay? And that would be with companies to probably a medium to a large scale in terms of size, would get that level of service offering. The AWRC Product Solutions is more focused. This is about almost spot research, the idea of helping businesses to breathe new life into in existing products and services. So to give you a couple of exemplars of how that might actually work. So what I've seen in business, both in healthcare technology and life sciences, but also in the pharmaceutical field when I've worked with companies, is often their products get to end of life. They've been good products for them, but they've got a really strong brand, so they don't want those products to fall by the wayside. They'll often subcontract out R&D work to organizations to actually breathe new life into that product and then resubmit it to the market so they can extend the life and keep the brand that's there. I think with our research, technology, our innovation and connectivity, we can help companies with that. But you can also look at an established business. So let's take a sort of reasonably large SME or a well-established SME. So not acceleration function, reasonably large SME. They may have a product that they're designing alongside their current product portfolio, and they might not be able to get it beyond that technological hump that's causing a problem. We can use our research to deliver that. And then obviously at the bottom of the screen here, you can see the idea of our AWS accelerator. As I said, there was incredible feedback about that work that had taken place. And I've been involved in all the meetings the accelerator have done publicly in the last couple of weeks, last month or so, and the response has been great. So for me, it's obvious that that accelerator needs to be continued, both in terms of the work it delivers right up front of the innovation process, but also the goodwill that's been generated across university and externally as well. And there's a good team in place. The way I see this working, and by the way, this isn't just coming off the top of my head, this is taking a lead from the work that Simon and his team did in designing the new accelerator 2.0, if you like. And it's the idea of acceleration calls where we look across a year. So what we do is we create themed acceleration calls that are based around AWRC drivers. Let's just say cancer prehab, for example, or sport, for example. Okay, and we put those out to the marketplace. Within the first 6 months within acceleration, we find between 8 and 10 companies that we think could be really good in terms of what we do. And we develop them across that innovation pathway across the first 6 months. In block 2, month 7 to month 12, we take 3 or 4 of the best organizations who've been on that cohort and we develop them again. Now, the thing that I really love about that model that Simon and his team have put together is it gets us to a stage where those 3 to 4 companies are at a readiness state where they can move into the next part of their journey with the AWRC. And that's a really nice connectivity point that I think we can bring into it. To say as well, the team that's already in place, we are looking at sort of a HIFE at the moment to continue. And I really see the sort of people in that team becoming broader R&D for business pillar people across AWRC. So we broaden the whole thing out, like I said before. But we don't just want to stop there with industry. At the title here at top in terms of program 2, you'll see a thing called Business Loves Innovation. What I've seen in many years of working with business and lots of business is this idea that companies look at universities as nice to have, difficult to engage with sometimes. When you're in the pathway is not always great. Is there true value for you within a university? And is it just about research for research's sake? And that's the perception. It's not real, but it's the perception. I want to make sure that by putting this program together, we can contextualize the stuff that we do from a research perspective to make sure business understands. And why are we doing this? Because this allows us to create leads and new business for our wider programs and for our researchers. And let me just be really clear here. This whole program is about 2 things at heart. How can we support business? How can we support our researchers? And they're the 2 key points. Now we go beyond that with civic agenda students, et cetera, but that's what we're trying to achieve in a broad way. And just to say very quickly, there's a really big substantive document that sits behind this strategy. It's not just a vision, it's a really clear document. 20 pages in length. It also works as a bid document for HIFE for continuation. So there's real granularity to the detail of what I'm talking about here. This program, by the way it's shaped is pretty straightforward. It's a seminar program. I'd like to think we could do a sandpit program as well to get business working with us, which I think would be really useful. But the idea is this. You think about one of our thematic areas, and again, let's just take cancer prehab as one exemplar. We find out where our research exists within college, within AWRC and wider SHU, and we bring those researchers together. We then identify the business groups that we might want to attract, the companies that are relevant to that marketplace. Canon is obviously a case in point in this instance, and we bring them together in a seminar. Now, the idea of that is it's about saying, look, we're not just saying we're opening up and saying, come and look at our researchers. You're contextualizing it to what they're actually about. And the idea behind that is to create more collisions. It's to break down those borders that might already exist and get them working with us. But once again, we want to go a little bit further than that. I believe that Sheffield Hallam University and AWRC as an important research centre within Sheffield Hallam University should also be about the communities that we're in. And the Transforming Communities programme is all about that. Behind me here, you'll see my screen. I'm unabashed about putting that in the background, and it's been great. It's been a coalescing and talking point on lots of presentations. The important thing about it for me is that it exists within the middle of Darnall, one of the most underprivileged communities within South Yorkshire. But it's not alone. If you look at places like Page Hall, Shire Green, Shirecliffe, those communities exist across Sheffield and Sheffield City region. What I want to happen, I would like to think those communities see AWRC and see SHU as their institutions. They're civic organisations that sit at the heart of our communities, and they should feel that way. So when I look at the work, for example, Sally's done with Claire on PERG, that's clearly bringing the community into our research and making them part of it. And to me, that's real. It's not just saying we're going to do this, that's real stuff. And Sally and I have spoken about this, and she knows what I think about PERG. I think it's a really positive step for us as a group. The 2 programs you can see on here, there's one called the Outreach Programme. That's about creating civic pride, engagement, and as I've just said, ownership in disadvantaged communities. And for me, that's really important. Some of you will know, some of you won't. I come from a working class council estate in Bradford. I didn't leave there till I was 10 years old. And I've seen firsthand how difficult it is for young people to see a roadmap out of that situation. What I'd like to think here is that we can create connectivity to schools, to colleges, to community groups in those areas and get them connected with us, working on things. I'd love to think if governance allowed it, it was possible to create a youth PERG group, something like that. So we can actually say, okay, how do we get young people and their voice into this? But it goes so much further than that. Once you connect them in, they become part of it and they see a route, and that's different. So that's the outreach program. And by the way, just to say on this, this is contextualized with business. And the reason it's contextualized with business is to make it real. So the youth can actually see there's something here I can get involved with. So for example, the work that Serg are doing, people like Adidas, it's just perfect because you can connect to that so easily. Moving on to the last part of the program now, and this is the AWRC Public Seminar Series. Now, we already have a public seminar series, and that's great. And so does Spark and lots of other parts of the university. What I want to do within this area of it is work with what's already taking place and contextualize that to business, but to age groups of all ages across our city, but particularly disadvantaged areas. And I want them to see that pathway. And I'm going to tell you a very, very quick story, okay? And we'll go into questions and answers just after this. Some of you will know that I ride an e-bike into work when I come in, and sadly I've only been able to come in 4 times. One of the times I came, I think it was the second time in, cycled up to the cycle store, pulled my bike up, and there was a young lad stood there at the side of the door to the cycle store. So I like to have a chat. So I said to the young man, okay, hi, where are you from? And I think he was from the Oasis Academy around the corner. I don't think he was a UTC, I think he was younger than that. And I had a little chat, and I said, okay. And I said, do you know the building? And he didn't say anything about the building. He said, I like your bike. And I said, oh, good, you know. So I said to him, so I told him about the bike. He was interested in it, flashing lights, alarms, etc., that's got built into this e-bike. And I kind of went down the road with him and told him about the bike. And then I said to him, I said, just out of interest, do you know what this building is behind you? And he said, no. And I said, okay. I said, well, this is the Advanced Wellbeing Research Centre from Sheffield Hallam University. I said, are you from around here? He said, yeah. I said, well, this is in your community. And I said, what do you think goes on inside? And he had no idea. And I said, well, inside there are robots, advanced level research, one of the biggest motion capture and motion analysis labs in the whole of Europe, and research that's taking place that can be world leading. And I said, it really changes our lives in terms of our health and well-being. I said, you as an individual, you could end up working there. You could be a researcher there. You know, so when you go back to school and you talk to your friends, tell them what it's about. Tell them about the fact we met. And I said, and also tell your teachers about it and get them engaged into it. So the work that we do here is so much more than just research. It's got a real civic pride to it. And I think that's just a wonderful thing for us to have. So I'm going to stop sharing screen now. And just to say, all of you obviously will have my contact details. I would absolutely welcome you sending me personal messages about any ideas that you've got. So in terms of how you can enrich and develop the plan that you've just seen, you know, send me by email, but also I'd open up the floor now to questions and ask you your thoughts, your feedback. Just to let you know, we'll be sharing this with the co-locators as well, so they can understand the broader vision. And thanks for your time. I'll take a drink of water now.
Thanks, Jason. Huge thanks.